oblivion as that?
Fusroda, Amalgamingle Army, welcome to the latest episode of Should You Play, our video solution to your gaming curiosity.
Today we want to talk about Skyrim, Bethesda's fifth instalment in their hugely successful medieval fantasy RPG series, The Elder Scrolls. The game was initially released in 2011 to much acclaim, and most recently had a re-release in the form of the Anniversary Edition in 2021.
It's no secret to anyone who's watched our videos that I adore this game. It is my comfy blanket game. I have played Skyrim more than any other game ever. I know what I love, and I love this game.
I, on the other hand, have tried Skyrim many times, but it always felt like something was missing, and I can't put my finger on what. I also can't play this game with Craig in the room without him biting his fist over all the things I'm doing wrong. Same applies to Mass Effect 2.
So as you can see, there are differing opinions on Skyrim here, and we wanted to evaluate the game while we eagerly await Elder Scrolls 6 that will probably not be released until 2111, just in time for the centennial re-release of Skyrim.
Please note that Skyrim has been out since 2011, so we're not going to sweat over the odd spoiler in this video. Proceed at your own peril. Starting off our appraisal is the first thing you do in the game, which is create your character. Unlike some other traditional Western RPGs, there are no classes in Skyrim. Instead, there are 10 playable races and 18 skill trees to choose from and invest in. With no predetermined character, you can do whatever you want and be whoever you want to be.
There are a lot of decisions to be made when creating your character. You can play as a male or female and pick one of the races that fall under either a human, elven or beast race. Human races consist of Redguard, Imperial, Nord and Breton. The elven races are comprised of High, Wood and Dark Elves, and the beast races are Argonian, Khajiit and arguably the Orsimer.
If you are new to Skyrim, then it's difficult to know what kind of character to create. It would be easy to say that human races are best for warrior builds, elves are better for magic and beasts are great for stealth playstyles, but it's sadly not as simple as that. Each race comes with unique abilities, powers and skill advantages.
If you've seen my other videos, then you'll know that my preferred playstyle is the meme Stealth Archer, and therefore I tend to choose a lizard-like Argonian, or the feline Khajiit, or the Wood Elf Bosmer. Since Heather prefers a mage build, I always recommend a race that is good with magic, such as a High Elf. We're not going to go into too much detail with the races because I've previously done 2 tip videos on Skyrim that covers all this, so be sure to check that out if you want more information.
Once you pick your gender and race, you then get to customise them. The customisation options were impressive in 2011, however by today's standards it's seen as quite underwhelming, evidenced by the availability of mods that add all sorts of new character aesthetics. But how your character looks is not important. What is important is the skills used to create your character build.
No sign of him. Hello there, fellow traveler.
18 skill trees might seem like a lot, but you can pick whichever one caters to your desired playstyle. A great feature of Skyrim is that there is no level cap, and even if you reach level 40 and realise these skills aren't for you, you can simply choose different skills. But beware, because this game level scales and you don't want to be an inexperienced level 40 mage. Once you gain access to every black book in a single playthrough, you can reset skills and perks, but I'm unsure why you will want to do this with the almost inexhaustible skill points you can gain with no level cap.
Want to be a warrior? Choose one-handed or two-handed skills to make yourself a close combat force to be reckoned with. Want to be a fire-throwing wizard? Choose destruction. Want to be a stealthy Skyrim ninja? Be sure to invest in sneak. There is so much choice in this game. In other videos, I have often referred to myself as a panic mage, and Skyrim is primarily where this comes from. I can't aim for shit in Skyrim for some reason, so playing as a stealth archer does me no favours.
It's actually quite funny watching Heather try to play Skyrim, because despite being quite an expert archer in other games, she is a terrible archer in Skyrim. She tries to embrace a stealth archer build, but somehow always ends up running away screaming and defaulting to elemental magic out of panic.
That's because the enemies be getting all up in my space, giving me attitude, okay?
That do be true. Sadly, the magic in Skyrim feels like an afterthought, but there are ways to become a powerful sorcerer. You can gain access to new superior spells at the College of Winterhold, invest in illusion, alteration, destruction, conjuration and restoration skills. The downside is that magic is governed by your magicka. If your magicka meter runs out during battle, you can either use a potion or run away to allow it to slowly regenerate.
It's no secret that the magic in Skyrim is not as great as it could be, but it can still be a lot of fun to embrace. Destruction is what really matters in Skyrim magic. You can throw fireballs, ice spikes and bolts of lightning. There is healing and support magic, but it's destruction that will turn your foes to ash or break them into icy shards. Of course, what playstyle you favour greatly affects the combat experience, what weapons you will be most proficient using, and what armour is most suitable.
Combat in Skyrim comes down to 3 different styles. There's melee, using swords, axes, maces and warhammers, ranged, using bows and crossbows, or magic, which covers a wide range on its own. Skyrim offers a similar level of diversity as previous Elder Scrolls and allows dual wielding with one-handed weapons.
There are a lot of different types of weapons that vary in weight, quality and class. Iron weapons are at the lowest level of quality, with Daedric and Dragonbone weapons being the best. Weapons can be looted, gained as a reward, bought, stolen or even forged, providing you have the right materials. Forging weapons can generally produce the best results, but it can be a bit time consuming.
If you plan on being a warrior, then you're going to need a spiffy set of armour, and Skyrim does not slouch in that department. There are 2 types of armour in the game, light and heavy. All you really need to know is that heavy armour is best for your standard warrior builds, and light armour is best for your nimble fighters or stealth players.
Weapons, armour and jewellery can also be imbued with enchantments, which is a great option for mage character builds. Enchanting is a form of crafting that allows players to add magical improvements and perks to gear. There's 18 weapon enchantments alone that deplete with use and must be refilled using soul gems. But let's not go down that rabbit hole, because that's a whole complex thing that could be a video in itself.
Indeed, and if you would like that, let me know down in the comments below. And that's before we even get to the dragon shouts that you can use to your advantage in the game. These dragon shouts can be absorbed from word walls, but can only be unlocked once you have enough dragon souls, which you only get from the corpses of slain dragons, and they are pretty awesome.
Next up, let's talk about the world itself. For those of you that don't know, Skyrim is the location of the game and not just the title. Compared with the likes of the recent Assassin's Creed games, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and many other open world titles, Skyrim might look quaint in its size, but don't let that fool you. There is a lot to see and do in this game.
One of the best things about Skyrim also happens to be one of the things that Heather doesn't like. Skyrim does not hold your hand, and you can quite literally get lost playing this game. You can choose to follow the quest markers towards Riverwood once you have completed the tutorial, but if you think sod this, I want to see what's over that hill, then by all means go ahead. Just be prepared that if you run into a giant, you might become an astronaut.
The main problem I have with the world is that it's too easy to feel aimless, unless you already know the game, which is perhaps due to how I normally approach RPGs. Normally, you have an overall agenda, and you can choose whether to pursue or defer it in favour of other things that are clearly displayed. In Skyrim, the main quest is something you are kind of meant to avoid straight away, and these other things that are unclarified take centre stage. I do like to explore in open world games, but with Skyrim I don't know why I'm exploring, if that makes any sense. I have no goal.
I, however, am the complete opposite, and not just because I have been playing this game since release date. I love the freedom this game offers you. It doesn't say that you can't go left and that you can only go right. It doesn't say you can't use this spell because you're not playing as a mage, or you can't use daggers because you're not playing as a rogue. You can do anything and be anything you want, including being a vampire, a werewolf, or a mass murderer if the mood takes you. I also have that itch where as soon as I see an icon on the compass, I have to go discover it.
I have to disagree with Craig here. It is because he's been playing since it was released. He approaches a Skyrim playthrough so systematically and draws on his existing knowledge because he knows it so well, and therefore lacks the aimless learning experience that I and other newbies have to endure.
I'm gonna let Dr. Cox speak on my behalf.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the game for what it is. The world itself can feel old world relaxing, and you can feel that life is lived at a slower pace. NPCs have a life with a complete schedule. They'll shop, chop wood, talk to each other, eat, go to the pub, and even sing drunkenly.
This is nothing new if you've played Oblivion, that has a similar dynamic, and it goes a long way to help make Skyrim feel lived in instead of being just a large empty sandbox. Also, with the right mods installed, more on that later, the world can look very beautiful. The graphics aren't exactly top tier, but that's never been a main draw in any Bethesda game, let's be honest.
So next, let's move on to all of the different things that you can do in Skyrim. There's the main quest, side quests, faction quests, DLC content, caves to explore, tombs, and much more. You start the game thrown right into the main quest 200 years after Oblivion, in a world plagued by civil war between the Imperial Army and a rebel faction known as the Stormcloaks, who desire independence.
It is foretold in Elder Scrolls Prophecy that this conflict will lead to the return of extinct dragons under the command of Alduin, the Nordic god of destruction, dubbed the World Eater. Considering the game begins with your character narrowly avoiding decapitation thanks to a rude but amazingly timed dragon attack, I think it's safe to say that the prophecy has come to fruition.
The main quest sounds exciting, but it is poorly executed, uninteresting, and plays a backseat role. The only great thing about the main quest is that it adds dragons to the world. This can be an exciting addition or very pesky, depending on whether you are a high enough level to deal with the constant onslaught of dragon attacks.
I'm honestly surprised we got this far into the video before we mentioned dragons properly. These random encounters can start to feel tiresome, especially when you are in the middle of doing something and have to stop everything to deal with this two-winged beast. What level you are depends on what dragon variant you are likely to encounter, and not all of them are pushovers. This is why, even though dragons are awesome and add a new energy to the game, I always recommend putting off the main quest until much later. For those of you curious, about 3 years ago I did a video on what I think the main quest of Skyrim should have been and how it was such a missed opportunity, so be sure to check that out. Apologies if the audio isn't great, it is an old video from when we were tiny baby YouTubers.
So let's move on to the side quests. Quests are acquired through more old school means, where you have to speak to people in cities and out in the wilds for them to appear or be triggered. There are quest markers, but it isn't intrusive like some other RPGs can be.
For me, this is where Skyrim really shines. The side quests, and the fact that they are not immediately apparent with big exclamation marks above NPCs' heads, help to make the world feel alive. Walking into Markarth for the first time and seeing a poor woman gutted before your eyes leads you down a whirlwind quest of corruption, cover-ups and conspiracy. Discovering quests this way makes exploration worth it. You can happen by a bandit telling you not to enter a crypt for your own safety. Do you heed her words or do you cut her down and explore the tomb regardless? The choice is yours.
But that's just the side quests. There are faction quests such as the Dark Brotherhood, Assassins for Hire, the self-explanatory Thieves Guild, the Warrior Guild known as the Companions, and even the Dawnguard DLC adds a faction of vampire hunters for you to join, or maybe destroy. Again, it's entirely up to you. Outside questing, there is a lot that you can do. You can explore the many cave systems throughout the world, buy houses, collect and display gear, adopt children, or just explore and see what you stumble across.
You can sit and watch the sun set in peace and quiet, or if you've had a bad day, go on a murderous rampage, which is always fun to do. I told you a million times we don't owe you any money, Eon! Just make sure you do it on a separate save, or you could break the game. We won. Don't have to pay him anything.
I know, right? The final thing we want to mention is what Skyrim has now become famous for, and that's mod support, and to a lesser extent the Creation Club. There's so much to unpack, it feels almost impossible to cover in a single entry in a video like this, but we can try. I don't know anything about mods, so I'll leave Craig to explain this one. Take it away, Craig.
Okay, well, mods are both great and highly infuriating at the same time, as these can add so many things to make Skyrim feel even better. More weapons and armour, spells, player homes, new quests, characters, pets, graphic overhauls, bug fixes, and so much more. And all of these have been done by one of the largest gaming communities in the world. Even today, the Skyrim modding scene is still going strong. But be warned, mods should only be used by people who have already played this game at least once and are familiar with the game and its core mechanics. Isn't that right, Heather?
Yes, for people like me, the mods can be very confusing. If they are already installed without you knowing and you go in blind, you can be bombarded with Creation Club tasks straight away, be confronted by a naked mailman, oh my, and get lost in locations that are not in the vanilla game, or because you saw a mysterious purple portal that beckoned you in. This is what first made me turn off Skyrim.
In my defence, you had already said you had no desire to play the game, and it was set up for me to cut out some of the more tedious aspects of the earlier game. For example, a mod that lets you skip past a monotonous cart ride at the start. So yes, do be mindful of that if you are unfamiliar with Skyrim. We should also say that if you are looking at this game and thinking, ooh, once I've actually got into this game I will install mods, mods are only supported on the PC, the Xboxes and the Playstations. If you are a Switch only player, I'm afraid you'll only be able to play the game as is.
So what was that purple room that I went into?
It was a cheat thing. It
Oh,
was
was
literally
it?
a cheat room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Naughty, naughty.
Well, it's for people who've played the game a billion times like me.
Okay, now let's focus on the glaring negative aspects of Skyrim. My main negative is that despite many updates, re-releases and mods, the game is just so outdated. I don't mind older games, but I do mind clunky, slow controls and a UI that just feels all wrong to me. Sadly, there's a lot of things about Bethesda games in general that feel uninspired and dated, and that's not just Skyrim. But I guess it's just my gaming preference. I like games with rich stories, eccentric characters, and fast-paced, exciting, flashy combat, and those are things that Skyrim simply doesn't provide. And that's not a bad thing at all. 60 million people can't be wrong because Skyrim has cumulatively sold over 60 million copies worldwide between 2011 and 2023 across every platform except mobile.
My negatives are purely from a fan perspective. Not all the faction questlines are that great, characters can be a bit flat, and the main quest could have been more interesting. And that's also not forgetting that it doesn't matter which version of this game you're playing, you will encounter bugs and glitches even if it is something minor. But the rest of the game more than makes up for it for me. So should you play Skyrim in 2024? It really depends. If you can overlook the game's flaws and are willing to embrace mods, then yeah, give it a try. If you prefer more linear narratives and a bit of handholding, then Skyrim is not going to be for you.
Craig doesn't think Skyrim is complicated or confusing at all, but he's been playing this game for so long that he is blinded by his own knowledge. But let me tell you, Skyrim is a complex game with a lot of different mechanics at work. It's because of this that so much needs explaining to newbies and why it's difficult to do a should you play review on it. We can't say to people, this is how you play, this is what you do, and here's where you go, because it's not that kind of game.
That's very true. How do you assess a game that grants so much freedom to the player and therefore each player gets different experiences? I suppose whether or not you should play Skyrim comes down to how much you enjoy exploring at a slower pace, freedom and being immersed in a lore-rich world. Let us know in the comments how experienced with Skyrim you are, and if you are playing it for the first time, what you make of it. I've been Craig.
And I've been Heather.
This is Amalgamingle, and thanks for watching.